back for day 2. As you can see, I am repping my college gear. Today is Wear It Wednesday, so please make sure you are wearing your Spirit 2 with either your high school that you're currently attending, or maybe you're heading off to college and you want to represent your college that you're going to. But that's really important for the upcoming giveaways that we're having, right? To either take those individual pictures wearing your school spirit, or as a group during your debrief calls, take those pictures and share it with us on Instagram so you could be entered to win those awesome prizes, whether it's the swag bag for individuals or for that 30-minute training with MMP. You get the chance to win both of those. I would like to introduce to you Brandy. She's a friend of mine who actually currently lives in California, but we went to high school together, and after high school she's had a very interesting journey, and so I'm really looking forward for her to share that with you guys. It's definitely a powerful and impacting story, just talking about resiliency and strength and perseverance. She's been able to go through a lot of challenges, but also overcome them, which is why her presentation is called Little Victories. So we're looking forward to having her with us.
What does it mean to lead a legacy? How do you focus on your future when you have so many things you need to focus on now? Or when your past is swallowing you whole? Are you leading a path that you want, or is it a path that your parents want? Do you find yourself competing with the journey of others, like your friends and your peers that they're taking? According to Marie Kondo, the space in which we live should be for the person we are becoming now, and not the person we were in the past. Although she's speaking in relation to our living space, I think it can apply in all aspects of our lives. Hi. My name is Brandy Lewis. I am 28 years old and I live in Los Angeles, California. When I think about my goals and the path of my life that I wanted for myself in middle school and in high school, 3 things stick out the most. 1, I wanted to dance. Whatever I decided to do in life, I wanted to make sure that dance would always be my number 1 passion, and somehow or some way I would be dancing for a living. 2, my end goal was to achieve financial stability. If that meant having another career that could help pay for the bills and pay for my passion, then so be it. I wanted to help people, whether that meant mentorship, philanthropy, starting my own nonprofit, or even simple gestures in my daily life. So, what do I do now? Well, I work in media and advertising. I negotiate and build national TV ad campaigns for multiple clients in the commercials that you see on TV. I also write for a blog and advocate and raise awareness for multiple human rights and health issues. I use my voice to help others navigate through their difficult circumstances in life, and encouraging those to continue and always celebrate the little victories every step of the way. I personally haven't danced in over 2 years, but it's not due to my loss of my passion, but due to circumstances that are out of my control. So, how did I get here? Let's go back to the beginning and walk through this roller coaster together. As a child, I loved music. I loved the arts, and most importantly, I loved the way it made me feel. Unfortunately, rhythm was something that skipped a generation, because for the life of me, I could not catch a beat. My family loves to bring up the time where I was in the church choir in the front, biggest smile on my face, singing and clapping and rocking off beat, clashing into everyone beside me. My mother instilled a love for the arts and knowledge early on. We went to museums, community showcases. She really wanted to expand our worldview beyond the 4 corners of our block on the south side of Chicago. I was infatuated with Alvin Ailey Dance Company. I had the books, I went to their shows when they came into town, and I loved watching ballerinas soar through the sky. I wanted that to be me. I was deeply in love with dance. However, the painful truth was I was an absolutely terrible dancer. When I danced, it was like a mix of Dua Lipa and Bambi. It's not a good combo. I remember seeing the music videos of Justin Timberlake and Aaliyah and trying to learn their choreography. I wasn't enrolled in any dance classes because that wasn't something that I had access to. I was really, really bad at dancing, but I kept dancing. By the time I moved to the northwest suburbs, I had a better sense of what rhythm was and started to clap on beat. I joined Spirit Squad in middle school and chorus, and I danced more and more and more. I remember a good friend of mine told me about a theater dance program called Orchesis and how she would be auditioning when we went to high school. Her sister was on it and she suggested that I try out, but I hadn't taken any professional lessons before. I was confident on the outside, but on the inside, my insecurities were running rampant. So I chickened out and tried out for Palms instead. Although it was not my cup of tea, thankfully it was the right choice, because Palms gave me the basic technique and foundation that I needed. So my sophomore year, I tried out for Orchesis. Every step, every pirouette felt like the movement just belonged in my body. And the songs, they wept off my limbs, and I soared like I always wanted to. I danced on Orchesis for the rest of my high school career. I started taking ballet classes through Orchesis, but I also attended Faubourg Ballet Academy. So being up at 6 a.m. for ballet, getting home at 10 p.m. after long rehearsals and night classes at Faubourg, they were not easy, but I did the work. I trained so hard because if I wanted to dance for Ailey, I had a lot to learn. Since I never had technical training at the academy, I was taking ballet classes with 12-year-olds. It's a humbling experience, but it's what you need to do. I had a desire to not only be a professional dancer, but also to continue excel academically. I choreographed multiple pieces on our showcases and submitted at state, as well as our District 214 assemblies. By my senior year, I was in independent study for Japanese. I had to drop AP Art in order so I could take college accounting. I was nominated Best Dancer of my senior class, and in the yearbook for future job, it read accountant and professional dancer. I graduated and should have been off to college. I initially was supposed to go to NIU because my best friend at the time was going, so I felt I should go too and we could be roommates. But to be honest, I wasn't sold on the school or the program, and I decided last minute to stay home and go to Harper Community College for 1 year. That summer, I did a summer dance intensive at Deeply Rooted Dance Company in downtown Chicago, and that is where my mindset in life changed, and everything comes full circle. That summer, my body was put through a lot of discipline and stress through commuting to the city, 12 hours of dancing a day, and conditioning 5 days a week. It was difficult, but it was amazing. During class, where everyone was exhausted, and honestly, we were over it, the instructor gave us a lesson that summed up to, if you want it to succeed and you want success, all you need are 3 things: patience, commitment, consistency. That's it. Granted, we were talking about dance and technique, but I applied it to all aspects of life moving forward. Heavily using those 3 words had got me to where I am today. That summer, I saw a PBS special about the University of Iowa dance program, which I ended up attending and being accepted into their program. Things seemed like they were finally falling into place, and that I was on my way to my dreams, and everything changed. February 7th, 2012. I had a really bad migraine, to the point where I couldn't see. I couldn't walk on my own without assistance from somebody else. My friend took me to the university hospital and they sent me to the ER. They said they thought I had meningitis, and the only way to test for it was by doing a spinal tap or a lumbar puncture. They're the same thing. Which is basically they place a needle in between your vertebrae and then they collect the spinal fluid. The first attempt caused me to pass out and fall over the table, and after I came to, they tried again with me lying on my side. Unfortunately, I felt 2 zaps down the right side of my body. I winced in pain and informed the doctor that I believe he hit a nerve, and he told me to relax, and I was just anxious. The fluid dripped out slowly, and once the results were back, they said I didn't have meningitis and I was free to go. I was not giving proper post-procedural care instruction, and I was told it was just a headache. and gave me some medication. Things began to spiral from there. Since I wasn't informed that I should have laid flat for 24 hours, I went to school the next day. I sat out of dance classes so that I would not be marked absent. I was in excruciating back pain. I was nauseous, my head was killing me, my gait was off, and it progressively got worse as the days went on. So I got on a megabus and I came home, and my mom took me to the hospital. My only concern was when the pain and weakness would stop so I could dance again. The doctors didn't have an answer. They gave me some meds and told me not to worry about the spinal damage because typically when you feel this, you will feel the side effects from the sight point down. And I was affected on both my upper extremities and my lower ones as well, but only on the right side. I couldn't dance since I couldn't dance, I couldn't be a dance major. And so I had to drop out and do a medical withdrawal. I cried a lot. I packed my dorm up with the help of some friends and I moved back home. I went to physical therapy 3 times a week because the goal was to get my strength back, heal, go to summer school at Harper, and finish up prerequisites so then in the fall I could return to Iowa and to dance again. Unfortunately, that did not happen because later in May that year, I was sitting in my nutrition class and I got pain in my right arm and the vision went black in one eye and I slid down the nurse's station. The ambulance was called and I was given the simple test to see if I was having a stroke. Smile, hold both arms out, and talk. When the paramedic let go of my right arm fell down immediately. She's too young to be having a stroke, they said. They rushed me to the hospital like an episode of Grey's Anatomy. A lot of it was a blur, but I remember them sticking electrodes everywhere. I remember the pain, and I remember crying out for my mom. I had just celebrated my golden birthday. I had jumped on the trampoline. I was so determined to go back and finish my degree and dance again. Now, here I was, laying in a hospital bed, paralyzed from the neck down on the right side of my body. Once I was transferred from the ER to the neuro floor, I didn't cry once. I had patience, commitment, and consistency written on the whiteboards. I was always smiling, and anytime they asked if I had any question, the answer was always the same. Do you think I'll be able to dance again? I left the nitty-gritty questions of what was going on to my mom. She was a nurse, so I let her advocate. They threw around a lot of possible diagnoses, words, medications, but ultimately they had no idea what was wrong with me. I was transferred to a rehabilitation facility, and that is when everything sank in because I was the youngest resident, second to the youngest resident. The second youngest resident was 56. I had a one-on-one evaluation with my physical therapist in the rec room. I was wheeled up to the parallel bars. My heart fluttered, my hands touched them, and the memories of hours dancing at the bar and the time that I felt most free came flushing through. She said, "We'll take it easy. Only try to stand up, and we'll try to take a step after, but I have you." I laughed and said, "I used to dance for 12 hours a day. I know what my body is capable of." She helped me stand up by pulling on the gait belt around my waist. I tried to concentrate to move my right leg, but it wouldn't budge. As if my legs were a mountain and they suddenly become one with the floor. She eventually used her hand to pick up my foot and move it forward. I burst into tears. It was the ultimate betrayal by my body. Walking and riding again seemed light years away, and dancing seemed nearly impossible. But they said that I was young, so I would bounce back quickly. So I turned to patience, commitment, and consistency yet again. I stopped focusing on dancing only again, and instead I focused on the small, achievable goals and accomplishments that seemed attainable. For example, being able to sit up in bed without assistance, being able to unclench my fist, moving my finger. I celebrated every little victory I made along the way, and after a while, I realized I accomplished so much, and walking didn't seem so far away. I did my exercises in my room when my friends came to visit. I was determined and consistent, and I will never forget the day I took my first step. I was on a treadmill hooked up to a harness that pulls you up and makes it easier for you to learn how to walk. Titanium by Sia was playing in the background and everyone was watching. I took a step with my left leg and I tried to lift my right foot forward. I dragged it, but it moved. It was not perfect by any means, but I did it. And I cried this time tears of relief and joy because all of that hard work paid off. That mountain that was once my legs was now all these small and little victories stacked up one another. To this day, I have a list, actually right there, that reads Brandy's goals for Wednesday. 1. Walk 100 feet. 2. Go up and down just 4 stairs. 3. Kick your right leg out while sitting. This reminds me of how far I've come and whatever happens when you have patience, commitment, and consistency. Now, I would love to say that this is where it ends, but unfortunately the roller coaster continues. After being released and transferred into home therapy and eventually outpatient, things began to turn around. I went to Harper, I got my associate's degree, and I was transferring to ISU with the hopes of becoming a high school teacher. It felt like once again I was getting back on track. I was able to gain my strength and mobility back for the most part and ultimately was dancing again, which always ended with my legs giving out and needing several days to recoup. But behind the scenes, I had to change my major again. I developed more and more symptoms which hindered my quality of life and ability to function, ultimately resulting in more doctor's appointments, more medication, more relapses, and still no concrete diagnosis, more years of medical racial discrimination, and still no real answers to what the heck was going on. There I was leaving school again due to another medical withdrawal. In 2015, my family moved to Arizona. My mom hoped that maybe we'd be able to get me to the Mayo Clinic and get some real answers. Lupus and multiple sclerosis runs in my family. It means that it seemed to us as if MS was a culprit. Though I never made it to Mayo. I moved to LA April of that year with the thought of, if I do have MS, I want to live life now while I can, since I've seen the disease firsthand with family members. Over the next 3 years, it was a continuous cycle of a few good months and then a relapse. I knew what my triggers were, and if my spine was hurting, it was probably inflamed again, and I just took some naproxen. I knew that certain activities would cause me to be out of commission for a few weeks or even a few days or even a few weeks. Everything had to be calculated. In June 2018, I got a cold that I could not shake, and my spine was hurting to the point where I could not move my neck at all. From June to December of 2018, I had about 7 hospital visits and stays. At the time, my doctors believed I had an infection in my spine, and the process from 2012 started all over again. I had to get yet another spinal tap. This procedure, we didn't have any mishaps, and again, no infection. I spent a few days in the hospital. The pain and the weakness was the same and had the same remnants of before. This time, I had to go on bed rest for 3 weeks, and when I returned, I was put on part-time disability until I collapsed in the office and then was sent to another rehab facility. Learning to functionally walk again for the second time, the words patient, commitment, consistency remain pillars in my head. At the facility, I finally got an MRI that I was previously denied at the hospital. So that's a little victory. On the results, the notes read to see rheumatology, possible ankylosing spondylitis. No, that's a mouthful. It took me a couple days to pronounce it correctly, honestly. But after spending a month in a rehab facility, I was released with a wheelchair and walking about 50 to 100 feet while using forearm crutches, and as well with the diagnosis of spondylitis and psoriatic arthritis. Remember that spinal tap in 2012? It turns out that it activated a dormant gene that triggered my autoimmune disease. So now in October 2018, I had a diagnosis, a plan of care, and was going back to work full time. So all those little victories were now tangible, massive moves and victories had been made. I went back to work for about a week and a half, but my condition got worse, so I had to take a leave of absence. And then I went on long-term disability and moved back to Arizona with my mom so she could be the caregiver that I needed. In November, I had torn the muscles and tendons that connect the hip to the leg bilaterally and strained my iliopsoas muscle, which put me back into a subacute rehab facility. A few days after getting discharged, I vividly remember not being able to eat any food without excruciating pain and throwing up violently. I couldn't sleep. My pain was constantly at an 8 or higher on the pain scale. The sensations of my bones aching as if they were crushed and then remolded with cement. My joints wrecked with a sledgehammer while being stretched on a rack. I couldn't take my meds, and I was miserable. I tried to smile through the pain, but it hurt so much just to exist. I remember ugly crying to my mom and just saying how I didn't ask for this and I wanted God to take it back because I didn't want to be anybody's testimony. But I could not give up. That was not an option for me. I had lost my 3 pillars, and then I needed to accept and adapt and shift my perspective, which was not easy at that time. Honestly, I went through stages of grief, and I always returned to denial. It's fine, this is temporary. I'll be out of my wheelchair, and I'll be back at work at this date. The biggest shift I had was when I stopped planning for when my health gets better, and I decided to just enjoy life in the current state. Even if I didn't get better, I didn't want to waste my life on what ifs. I chose to accept and adapt my truth. I am a disabled woman. I accepted that for the rest of my life, I will need to rely on mobility aids every once in a while, and I will be subjected to oppressive attitudes toward visible illness the better I get. Fast forward to today. I'm still working to walk on my own. I had another injury, and I've transitioned from being 95% dependent on my wheelchair to now using a rollator. It's a walker with wheels, basically. My wheelchair gave me so much independence and freedom, and now my rollator gives me so much more. Today, I focus on the things I can control with my health. The food I eat, taking time and creating good habits for my mental health, and I remember my 3 pillars, because living with an incurable chronic illness is extremely frustrating and sometimes unpredictable. Okay, all the time it's unpredictable, but you have to be gentle with yourself and control the controllables. So I'm sure you're thinking, oh wow, great story. How can I relate to this? I don't have an autoimmune disease, I've never used a wheelchair, and I haven't been challenged to that extent. I hear you, but this is how I see it. Every now and then, we fall flat on our face and hope that things will work out in our favor. But as we all know, life does not always work that way. Life has a tendency to hit us hard with a blow that will knock everything you believed out of you, and it hurts. There's no doubt about it. But instead of being hard on yourself, remember that everything you encounter is a lesson. Whether that's a triumph, a failure, a person, or a situation, it's up to you to decide what to do next. Sometimes you need to look within yourself and ask, what are you doing wrong? What can you improve on? Are you giving everything 100% at your current task? Ask questions to better yourself and ultimately your future. Accountability and self-reflection are key, as we are constant pieces of work. We are not perfect people, but we can always strive to be a better version of ourselves. Take COVID-19, for example. We're in our homes, we've been in our homes for months, and out of the protection of not only ourselves, but those within our community. Schools have been virtual, parents and people have lost their jobs, you can't see your friends, you can't go outside, so of course, right now, we're all filled with all these emotions. However, instead of looking at this time as a hindrance, try to see it as an opportunity. Use this time to really manifest and start to build the life that you want. What I've been saying this entire time is, you need 3 things: patience, commitment, consistency to be successful and for you to feel and to succeed in your life. If you have those 3 things in your core, then it's really hard for you to fail because you won't look at it as failing. Instead, if you don't get your desired outcome, you don't give up and walk away. You stay committed, you stay consistent in your habits and your behavior. Gives yourself accountability. You have to have patience, especially now in this pandemic, because everything that is happening, the rules, the limitations that are set in place, we have no control over whatsoever. And when we don't have control over things, typically, and when we feel all this built up anxiety and anger and frustrations, it's hard to be clear and make clear decisions in life. Being still and patient gives you the opportunity to really look at the things as a whole and not just right now. For example, social media and the way society works with technology, we're used to everything right now. We want the instant gratification, the instant likes, the instant success. But those things do not come easy, nor do they happen without hard work. You have to be patient throughout that process. You cannot have commitment without patience, whether that's in a relationship, whether that's in a job, or even with setting your own goals. Without commitment, everything can slip through your fingers, because when things get hard or even boring, your dedication is truly tested. It's so much easier to just walk away instead of putting in the time, giving it your all, and being committed and being consistent. This is why you must find your why. Because to have a specific reason to correlate with your action makes it so much easier to do all three things I've been preaching. These can apply into a multitude of things. For example, you want to get an A on that test, you want a part in the upcoming play, you want a spot on the team, or even as small as, I don't want to feel like I'm dying when I'm running that dreaded mile. Trust me, I've been there. You might be thinking, okay, I get it. Patience, commitment, consistency. But how do I use it in my life when something bad or unexpected happens to me? How am I supposed to focus on the little victories when I'm so angry, I'm so sad, and I'm frustrated? My answer is to be still. If something bad happens to you, you have to let yourself feel those emotions and call them out. So we're so often with saying like, okay, this happened, and keep moving forward. We're go. But you have to feel that emotion and acknowledge those feelings, so when they do come up again, you know how to handle them in the future and appropriately. Let's say you want to try out for track, and you've run before and you're a good runner, but you haven't been running consistently. So unfortunately, you don't make the team. It stings, but you try to understand why. What is the root of this emotion? And afterwards, you realize that you don't even really want to be on the team. You're upset because what you really want is to run a marathon, and this would have been a gateway to train for that. So the next step is you come up with a plan to train, instead of trying to out for the track team again in the spring. So each day you tell yourself, no matter what, I will walk or jog for 10 minutes. No matter how tired I am, I will make sure I get those 10 minutes in. Every minute is a victory. And then it starts getting easier, so you adjust from a certain amount of minutes to a certain amount of miles. And then you start to notice after a while that you're getting slower, you're more exhausted, and maybe you develop shin splits or even a stress fracture. And you wonder, what is the point of all of this? And you feel as if you failed. But instead of looking at this as the end, shift your perspective and cherish how far you've actually come. Understand that this chapter is not over. It's just a bookmark. Now that you know you're going to make mistakes when you're trying to practice patience, commitment, consistency. It's not going to be all sunshines and rainbows. You're going to regress at times, and old habits may surface, but that is part of the process. It has not been easy. I have endured continuous setbacks, especially right now during current quarantine. When you're in the hard moments and you want to quit, try to celebrate that you make small habits and small steps forward. Really congratulate and be gentle with yourself. Growth and healing is not linear. In the end, understand that creating healthy habits and traits are valuable to have in general. You'll realize that having gratitude, being patient, being a committed person, and having consistency so much rooted in your life, it is so worth it. Don't live your life in spite of things. Accept your moments and cherish your little victories. Grow into the version that you want to desire in the life that you want. So in the beginning, I asked, what does the word legacy mean to you? And how can you focus on legacy when you're being consumed by your present and your past? I personally cannot define what your legacy will be or what legacy means to you. However, I can tell you, instead of being hung up on the big major life achievements you want and what others have, stay focused on your own path and journey. You cannot compare a journey to others because it's not the same. It's apples and oranges. It's not apples to apples. Don't get caught up on life that you think you should have or that you used to have or the one your past self used to want. Focus on the life you currently have, the life you truly want right now, and not what someone else wants for you. Remember that a few bad things that happen to you and who you are today in this very moment is not who you have to be for the rest of your life. I encourage you to really celebrate and cherish the little victories along the way, because in the end, when you turn around, you'll be surprised at how much you've accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brandy, for your session. We hope that you are able to learn from Brandy and that you are able to celebrate the little victories in your life as you are the big victories in your life. Be sure to check back into the participation packet. There are some reflection questions reflecting on Brandy's session, so be sure to go through those and work through them. And then stay tuned, because up next we have Joe Bush. He will be going on at 11:45, so stay tuned on our pages and he will be coming up next.
All right, I'd like to welcome to you Joe Bush. He is a former teacher of mine at Elk Grove High School, and Joe has been doing leadership presentations for a long time. He has a leadership class at Elk Grove High School, and we always love working with him. If you've seen him before, don't worry, he's always bringing new content and new strategies and new tools to help you become the best leader possible. So I'm really looking forward to Joe's session and can't wait to show it to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Joe Bush. I'm a teacher at Elk Grove High School, and I've been speaking with the Illinois Human Performance Project for the last couple of years. I want to thank you once again for inviting me back to a very different conference, but a good conference nonetheless, as I know the organization always puts out wonderful information and is always willing to help you guys learn how to lead and you learn how to grow. And I'm just really ecstatic to be part of this program once again. Today I'm going to talk about the topic of normal. You know, I've heard so much in the last couple of months, people saying, I just want the world to get back to normal. We just need things to go back to normal. And I want to challenge that belief. And I want to challenge that belief because I'm not sure that normal was as good as it could have been. See, I think a new normal can be better. In fact, I'm not really a fan of normal. Normal is kind of boring. Normal never really inspires. It's when we do things that aren't normal that we grow. When we step outside of our comfort zone, that we start to see good things happening. Normal oftentimes doesn't work. You know, I have two sons right now, they're 10 and 7, and by no stretch of the imagination are they normal. In fact, when my son Danny was 3 years old, I watched him walk into his bedroom, and it was carpeted, and he had a little bottle of water there, and he started squirting the bottle of water onto the carpet. I walked in, I said, Danny, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm putting water on the carpet because that way if any witches come in here, if they touch the water, they're obviously going to melt. I said, good point. I left the room. What an idea, putting water on the carpet in case witches come in. I mean, it was humorous, it was thought-provoking, and to a 3-year-old it made complete sense. But it wasn't at all normal. Last year I was with my youngest son. I took him to a water park in North Carolina, and we were waiting to go on this awesome water slide called the Howling Tornado. And each time you went on the Howling Tornado, the walk up was probably 6 flights of stairs, and you had to wait about 10 minutes. And we walked up, and we were waiting, and we were chit-chatting, and then there was a little bit of silence. And after a minute or two's silence, my son Michael turned to me and said, you know, Dad, ever since I learned how paper clips work, I've been obsessed. Again, that's not a normal thought. I mean, how does a thought like that pop into a kid's mind? He's waiting to go on a water slide. He's 750 miles from home, and all he's thinking about is paper clips. See, the best part about having kids is that you get to watch them grow. You get to watch them learn. You get to watch them explore. Over Memorial Day weekend, we went over to some friend's house and we had a little social distancing party. We didn't go inside. The kids just played outside. It was a beautiful day. And we just watched them ride their bikes and take their scooters up and down the sidewalk, and they had a blast. When they got bored with that, we walked over. There's a little pond around the corner, and next to the pond is a stream. And the stream is probably maybe like a quarter mile long. And one of the kids, I can't remember who it was, said, hey, can we just walk in the stream? I mean, it's probably about 6 inches deep. We said, yeah, absolutely. And so for a quarter mile, while the parents were walking right next to it, they laughed, they played, they splashed. I watched them connect with one another, which was amazing. You see, in this time of COVID-19, normal is to be scared. Normal is to be distant. Normal is to be remote. But kids know better. Kids want a different kind of normal. There's been a recent Gallup poll about work satisfaction among adults. And it's been said that 70% of all people dislike their job. 70%. So what that means is if you're at a school with 200 teachers, there's a good chance that 140 of them are not happy. I don't know, I can't get over that statistic. 70% of people are unhappy. And yet we just want to get back to normal. We just want to get back to the status quo. But the status quo wasn't satisfying. I mean, I'm so blessed that I love my job, that I get to work with great kids, that I get to come out here and talk to all of you. That's great. I'm happy to be part of the 30% that really likes their jobs. And when you start thinking about your own future, and you start thinking about, getting a job and locking in at age 25 and working to 65, that's 40 years. Are you going to have a normal, boring, unsatisfying job? Or are you going to do something that's great? Because when you're 65 years old, you don't want to sit around and think about the opportunities that you missed, the chances that you didn't take, and all those moments that you have that might be forgotten. I want to challenge you to a new normal. A new normal where, I don't know, maybe you wonder about paper clips. Maybe you talk and walk while you're walking in a creek. Or maybe you spread a little water on the ground because you're afraid that the witches might take you away. Take a cue from the younger kids. They're not scared. They're not afraid. They don't want to get back to just normal. So today's idea is going to be about this new normal. The new normal is going to be better. It's going to be you leading your life instead of just following other people. I want to build a world where 70% of people don't dislike their jobs. I want to inspire the world through their thoughts, their feelings, their actions. And I want you to lead a legacy because it's all going to start with you. So I want you to turn to someone if you're next to them or just yell out loud, I want a new normal. Go ahead and say it. I want a new normal. I want a new normal. So what is this normal going to be? Well, I'm going to ask you to do 6 things. Number 1 is notice. 2 is opportunities. 3 is reflection. 4 is motivation. 5 is accountability. And 6 is leadership. If you take the first letter from each one of those words, you'll see that it spells out normal. But this is going to be a new normal. A normal of an inspired life. A normal where leaders just like you are going to go out and lead yourself and lead others and make a huge difference in the world. We're going to forget about the normal that was 2, 3, 4 months ago. This is a new normal, an inspired normal, and we can make that happen. You've got all the tools and resources available to you. The Human Performance Project keeps putting out great stuff year after year after year. Use it, connect, get together, make a difference. So how do we make a difference? Well, the number one thing we need to do, the first thing we need to do is we need to notice. In our new normal, we need to notice. I've been watching Catholic Mass on YouTube. The priest at my church has been putting it on every Sunday. And after a couple of weeks of watching it, he mentioned that there's some people in the church who aren't able to go out and get their groceries. We have an elderly population in the church. And so he just put it out on YouTube and said, if there's anyone that's willing to help, we need people that will go out and will grocery shop for others. And so I sent a message out to the help. And he connected me with a woman named Mary. And Mary is 90 years old. And she's afraid to leave her little apartment. And she's afraid to go to the grocery store. And so I got on the phone with Mary and we connected. And she said, can you please shop for me? And I said, absolutely. And so I went over and I got the list and I went to the store. And right away I noticed some things that were different. Mary and I shop for different things. She really likes pudding. She really likes Jell-O. I don't like it at all. She likes bananas, but not the organic ones, because those are a little bit too expensive. And she got 1 can of tomato soup. And I thought that was so odd, because for years I've been buying at Costco and Sam's Club, and I've been buying in bulk. And I'm thinking, why not get 10 cans of tomato soup? Then you don't have to come back to the store. She'd give me a little envelope with some money. And when I opened the envelope, in addition to some cash, was a link card. And if you don't know what a link card is like food stamps, and it pays for the food for people that can't otherwise afford it. And at that moment, I had this sort of revelation. I noticed something different. Here it was, a woman living in my town, just about a half a mile away, who couldn't afford all the groceries that she wanted. She was stuck in her apartment for months. She was scared, and she just needed someone to help. And when I got back with her groceries, she tried to hand me a $5 bill for a tip. I said, Mary, I don't need a tip. I'm happy to do it. And so instead she gave me a loaf of bread. And she said, it's the Italian in me that says I can't let you leave here empty-handed. You did something really great for me. And she asked if I would come back. And I went back in the coming weeks, and there's been another couple of people who've been added to the list. And I'm so happy to help. And I think those of you who serve, you realize that the true benefit, we get the true benefit by serving others. Sure, we're helping other people, but really, we're benefiting ourselves and we're leading. But the most important thing in this new normal is I began to notice. When I drive by that apartment complex, I start thinking differently. I start wondering about the other people in our town who maybe can't afford groceries or can't go to the store. And it makes me think that in a new normal, we need to notice these things and we need to go out and help. I challenge you, going forward, to go out and notice things, because noticing is going to be a part of the new normal. The second letter in normal is opportunity. Wednesday, March 11th, was supposed to be picture day for the Elk Grove High School girls soccer program. I wore my coach's polo that day. The girls curled their hair and proudly wore their uniforms to school. We had been together at that point as a team, for 9 days. And then an announcement came over during lunch saying that all after-school activities would be canceled. They would be canceled until April 1st, after spring break. And athletics, in the time being, was canceled. And in that moment, I think we thought, all right, this is going to be a short thing. This coronavirus is going to fade away. And just like that, picture day was canceled. And it wasn't a huge deal. But then in the coming days, schools began to close. Seasons began to end. And there was a huge fear of this pandemic setting on America on a treacherous path. Having a degree in history, I thought back to how we as a country have overcome challenges. You see, everything that happens in life, there are challenges and there are opportunities. I thought back to my first month of teaching. It was 2001. And within 3 weeks of me being a teacher, 9/11 happened. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. And it was a huge challenge for us as a country. But out of that challenge came opportunity. I remember being scared. I remember just thinking, what's going to happen to the world? I remember just wanting to hold the people around me close. And I could think about how, at that time, my girlfriend, the most beautiful woman in the world, I would never been so sure about wanting to be with her. And 4 days after 9/11, we got engaged. See, when you think back in the history of America, when you think back to World War II, there was a challenge, but we had opportunities to grow victory gardens. During the collapse of 2008, there were challenges, but we saw new things come out. Companies like Venmo and Uber. This crisis, although a challenge, is going to lead us to some really, really good opportunities. My first suggestion is just the opportunity of time. I got to see my children more than I'll ever get to see them in their entire life. I got the opportunity of time. I got the opportunity to exercise more. I got the opportunity to just go outside and be, to not worry about having to pick my son up and then take him to religious ed class and then bring the other one to gymnastics and run around. That was the normal of the past. But in this new normal, I got to look around and sort of just breathe easy. As a matter of fact, my schedule worked such that this year I wasn't going to be able to drive down to Illinois Wesleyan to speak at this conference. But because of the challenge of what happened, I had the opportunity, because I can record this and we can play it on the day that you guys are going to be there. So what opportunities are you going to take from this time? See, even in the next couple months, you should have more time than you're ever going to have before. So, think about it. If you ever wanted to learn to play the guitar, go buy yourself a cheap guitar, take some lessons on YouTube, and get going. Learn a new language. Start brushing up on your Spanish, your French, whatever else you want to speak. Maybe start journaling. Maybe start writing. Maybe you've always wanted to write a book. Well, now's a beautiful time to do it. Just do it every single day. There's a quote out there that says, if you want something you've never had before, you've got to do something you've never done before. So what are you going to do different? How are you going to build yourself up and be prepared when the world gets back in order and you want this new normal? So let's recap. N stands for notice. O stands for opportunity. The third part of the new normal needs to be filled with reflection. Reflection matters. For the record, in the past, I've had some really sort of strange tendencies. I used to track the number of minutes I exercised, how many books I read in a month, the number of times I went to church, how much sugar I ate, minutes of a podcast I listened to. I could go on and on about all the things I used to track in my life, but you get the picture that there's probably some OCD in my life, and I'm comfortable with it. I'm all good. But what I learned during this pandemic is that sometimes things begin to spin out of control. And there's things that we can't fix. Sometimes your soccer season just gets canceled. I thought we were going to have a really great team this year, and I'll never have the opportunity. Sometimes you're told to wear masks when you go to grocery stores. And sometimes there's not enough flour or butter because apparently everyone in the United States decides that they want to bake. See, I love control. I love tracking things. I love just feeling like everything in my life is because of me. But what I realize in this pandemic is so many things are out of control. And this is really where reflection comes in. This is where reflection matters. As the world began to spin out of control, I started to reflect on what I really needed. I have a wonderful place to live. I have 2 outstanding children. I have a beautiful wife. We have food on the table. I have a job that I love. And what this new normal, this pandemic normal, taught me was to be grateful, to think about the things I have instead of just thinking about the things that I don't have. Reflection allows me to experience gratitude. See, my new normal, whenever that starts, is going to be filled with reflection and filled with gratitude. Because I've had time to sit back and think about what I want from life and what I'm grateful for. And I don't know if I would have had that same time if the world kept spinning at the pace that it was. So, we can step back right now and we can think about what we want from life. Leadership expert John Maxwell always says that experience isn't the best teacher. Evaluated experience is. Experience is not the best teacher. Evaluated experiences. And so it's not until we step back and we reflect and we think about what we want from life, we think about the good and the bad and make changes. That's how we really grow as leaders. So we've got notice. We've got opportunities. We've got reflection. Our next part of the new normal is going to be motivation. And I want you to say the following phrase with me. Emotion is created by motion. Emotion is created by motion. When you're laying around all day eating the wrong foods, how do you feel? Unmotivated. I hear people say, well, you know what, I'll get motivated in a couple minutes. It doesn't work like that. You got to move. You got to put the right foods in your body. You've just had probably a couple sessions about the health, the human performance part of this. And really the only way to get motivated is to go out and start doing things. Before I wrote this speech, I felt it was really, really important to go and just take a walk and clear my head and just move and get the blood pumping. And once I did, it was so easy to sit down and do that. Now, it's really difficult to stay motivated all the time. You can't just be doing jumping jacks and running around all the time to get motivated. But that's the spark. And so if you want to get motivated, the first thing you need to do is you need to move. Get up, put away the bad food, turn off the Netflix, and just start moving. Now that's the thing that gets the ball rolling. That's the motivation. Now, how do you stay there? Well, the next part in motivation is to determine something in your life that gives you energy. So is it writing? Is it connecting with people? Is it leading? Is it building? Is it driving? Is there something there? Is there something there that just lights a fire under you? As a teacher, I know that I have some really good days, and I know I have some not so good days. But in those good days, when I'm doing something that I love, when I've prepared a really good lesson, and we're lecturing and we're connecting and the kids are asking questions, I just get filled with so much energy. I can just tell in those moments, like, I'm on fire and the kids are engaged and the room has all this energy and there's just this buzz about it and it's amazing. And all of you have that. Maybe it's playing a sport. Maybe it's just being with your family. There are things that you do that energize you. My dad used to say when I was a kid, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I feel that even as I'm recording this speech, this isn't work. I love this. I could do this all day. When I'm teaching my classes and we're really connecting, I love it. When I'm coaching soccer, I love it. I don't want to be one of those people, one of the 70% that's really dissatisfied with their job. You'll see this new normal, when we come out of this, has to be filled with motivation. And the only way to stay motivated is to do things that give us energy. And when we do things that give us energy, we're going to find that passion. We're going to find that purpose. When we serve others, we get that motivation, we get that energy. And I just get more energized talking about it right now. I want you to say the following phrase with me. I just want to see how you feel. I am motivated. I am driven. I am here to serve. I am motivated. I am driven. I am here to serve. And I want you to say, I want a new normal. I want a new normal, right? You start to feel good. You get energy. Hopefully you feel motivated. Hopefully you don't have to worry about the things of the past dictating your future. See, we all have an opportunity. We can notice things. We can see the opportunities. We can reflect, and we can stay motivated. The next part is accountability. The new normal has to be filled with accountability. We've seen a lot of different leaders across the country, across the world, respond to this coronavirus. Some are very good, some are very bad. But I think the best leaders are the ones that are accountable to themselves and accountable to others. In societies today, it seems like we want to microwave our leaders. And you can't do that. You can't just all of a sudden say, like, boom, you're a leader. No, it takes time. It takes learning. It takes mistakes. It takes reflecting on those mistakes. That's how we gain this level of accountability. I can remember my first real lesson in accountability. I was in 7th grade, and I was in Mrs. Nessick's math class. And Mrs. Nessick was the best teacher that I've ever had. And part of the reason she was the best was because she held us all accountable. She held us to a higher standard. And every week we would take a test, and you'd get the test back on Monday, and you'd have 3 days to do test correction. So all the things you got wrong, you had to make right. And Mrs. Messick would stay after school every single day and answer any question. And she'd be after school from 2:30 to 3:15, 45 minutes every day, never missed. And so if you had a question on your test corrections, you could bring it up to her and she'd help you and she'd get it right. But the rule was that you had 3 days to get the test corrections done, and they had to be graded by 3:15 on that third day. So for whatever reason, I got like 8 questions wrong in a test, and I didn't do the test corrections right away. I don't know why, but I let it sit. And finally, it was the third day, and I was like, oh my goodness, I have to do these test corrections. And I didn't tell my parents I had to stay after school to get this done. And I didn't have a quarter. Back then, you had to use payphones. So I ran home as fast as I could in 10 minutes. And I was like, Mom, I have to go back to school, and I have to do the test corrections. And she drove me back. And I sat down with Mrs. Messick, and I did the test corrections, and I turned them in at 3 o'clock. And I was like, phew, I'm done. And about 3:03, she calls me back up to the desk, and she says, oh, well, you got 4 of these right, but there's still 4 wrong. And she handed me them back, and I had to go back. And then I furiously finished the last 4 questions, and I put it on her desk, and she said, thank you. And I said, so am I good now? And she says, no, it's 3:15, and I'm not going to grade it. These are late, and tomorrow you have a detention. I'll see you then. And I was like, what? Like, I ran all the way home. I came back. I did the test corrections. I put them on your desk, and you're not going to help me out in this situation? And I walked home, and I was so angry. I couldn't believe that this woman was going to give me a detention. And I remember going home and complaining to my mom about it. And that was like the worst thing to do, because my mom was 100% support of the teachers. So not only did I have a detention and hear it from my math teacher, now I had to hear it from my mom. But what she said to me is, how long did you have to get the test corrections done? I said 3 days. She said, how long did you wait? I said, till the last minute. She said, is that the teacher's fault or your fault? I said, it's my fault. And in that moment, I totally understood what accountability meant. I'm responsible for the majority of things in my life. And if I let other people or other circumstances try to control me, well, then I'm always going to be controlled by that. I've got to figure out a way to lead my life, to be accountable, to make sure that I'm doing the things that give me energy, that bring me passion, that bring me purpose, that I'm willing to go out and serve. You know, I was 100% accountable to Mary when I got her grocery list and went to the store. And it was frustrating going up and down the aisles of Jewel sometimes because I didn't know where everything was. But as I've done it a couple more times, I really enjoy it. And I know that I'm doing something for someone who can't do it themselves. The new normal has to be filled with accountability. The last part, and this is an easy one, is going to be about leadership. And I could talk all day about different theories of leadership, but I've just got this one quote, which I really, really, really like. And it says this: a society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they will never sit in. What kind of trees are you willing to plant? What kind of legacy are you willing to lead? Let me ask you this question. If you were put on trial for being a leader, would you be found guilty? If you were put on trial for being a leader, would you be convicted? Or would you be found innocent? See, I hope everyone that's watching this would be convicted of being a leader. I hope you're willing to lead. I hope you're willing to serve. I hope you're willing to do things for other people that they can't do themselves. See, leadership isn't about being out front with 1 million people behind them. Leadership is about turning around and leaning over and picking someone else up, picking them up when they can't pick themselves up. See, the most important thing you can do on this journey is develop yourself as a leader. Develop a vision for yourself. Develop a vision for your school or your group. Learn about yourself. Learn about others. Learn to connect. But most importantly, you've got to be willing to serve. And once you start serving, that's really when you start growing as a leader. See, over the last couple days, in all these different sessions, you learned ways to lead a legacy for yourself and in your school. See, the whole premise of this conference is to give you a whole bunch of ideas, and you can sit and you can reflect on them, and you can connect with other people, and you can build something great at your school. I mean, the Illinois Human Performance Project has so many resources and so many great people who are willing to do anything to help your schools, to help yourself, because they believe that's important. You know, individual transformation will change the world. Individual transformation will change the world. And so once you begin to get transformed, other people see that and they're excited and they begin to get transformed. And then schools transform, states transform, and countries transform. And we now all of a sudden live in this new normal where we experience wonder and joy. And 70% of people don't hate their jobs any longer. I want to leave you with a couple of last thoughts. Number one is this: excuses keep us from expanding. Think about any time that you've faced a challenge. Do you back down or do you plow through it? Because every time you make an excuse, it keeps you from expanding. It keeps you from growing. The next time you get a challenge, the next time someone comes up to you and gives you something that seems impossible, I want you to ask yourself this question: where is the proof that you can't do it? Where is the proof that you can't do it? Because my guess is there is no proof. So why don't you go out and take those first steps and try to do it? See, right now, with all these resources, you've got the keys to the castle. It's just going to be up to you to make a decision. I want you to notice the world around you. I want you to seek opportunities for yourself and for others. I want you to reflect on the life you used to live and the life you're going to live going forward. I want you to stay motivated. Ask yourself what gives you energy and follow that course. I want you to be accountable. Don't pass the buck. Say, hey, I did it right or I did it wrong, and if I did it wrong, I'm going to fix it. And I want you to lead. Because the number one thing, kids your age, we spend so much time following others. We follow all these people on virtual platforms. But I want you to lead people in the real world. That's your new normal. That's who I want you to become going forward. I want to thank you for this opportunity. I hope you got something out of this. I think there's a Q&A session right after this, so if you have any questions whatsoever, fire them out, and have a wonderful summer, and we'll see you back here next year. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much, Joe. Every time you share all of your great insights with our teams and our students and our audiences, you give us so many takeaways to consider. And I know everyone's going to take away some great ideas for adjusting to our new normal in the current times. So, day 2, this session and these days have been going by so fast, but we're really excited to hear all that comes out of your next debrief session. So stay tuned. Soon you'll be meeting with your schools and you'll be able to go through the debrief packet in your participant guide, or have other conversations with your classmates about how you can adjust to the new normal and what takeaways you had from speakers and discussions today. But before we let you go, let me give you a few reminders. Don't forget to post your pictures. Make sure you're sharing your Wear It Wednesday college or high school gear and posting as an individual and as your group as you go into your debrief calls. For that chance to win either the swag bag and or the M&P workshop leadership session.
We're just so proud of you guys for participating these past 2 days and taking this opportunity to help yourself grow as an individual and as a leader, and really work on yourself to be able to perform at your best. That's what these past 2 days have been all about. But tomorrow we're excited to bring you some more conversation and some more discussion that is specifically about your chapters and how you guys can really empower and educate your peers and your community about all the good stuff that you've learned, and what are some strategies that you'll be able to implement given the current times as you adjust to what school may look like in the fall. So make sure you're tuning back in tomorrow for our Day 3 festivities. We'll give you guys some great tips, some great resources, lots of discussion topics, and we'll also be going through some of our wonderful awards that you guys so deserve for creating such an impact in your schools and in your communities this past year. So make sure you stay tuned so you can see who is walking away with an award. Have a great debrief, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.